Welcome to the Bridge of Two podcast. Can you hear us, citizens of Earth?
Test.
Coming in from the Bridge 2 podcast. Oh, Bridge of Two, not Bridge 2.
My God.
Bridge 2 was a bridge, and it was an actual bridge.
Not even a cool bridge.
No, it's not a cool bridge. Well, yeah.
Maybe. They're not Bridge of Four. They're not Bridge of I'm about to say Bridge of
Bridge
Four.
of Four. Oh, man.
They're not Bridge 4.
The Bridge of Four, Bridge 2 podcast. Okay, so this is the part where I say, welcome to the Bridge of Two podcast.
Woo!
I'm your host, Josh.
With your other host, Jeremiah.
That's right. And our last names are secrets.
Jay Swizzle, as people don't ever call me.
My family calls me Red, and I won't tell you why. Welcome.
He's got red, rosy cheeks.
Oh, that's it. Yeah, thank you for that. Just take the mystique out of it. The danger.
The danger.
Now, this is the Bridge of Two podcast, where we bridge the sci-fi and fantasy realms we love into a nerdcast of epic proportions.
Yeah.
So,
Did you say Nerdcast this time?
I said nerdcast this time.
Good.
I nailed it.
Good.
Because I wrote it down.
It's always a good idea to write things
it
down.
Yeah, so we're back. We are doing it.
Back at it.
Being consistent here, somewhat. This is number 3 for us. And
Third time's the charm.
feeling good about what we're putting out, so.
I'm feeling cold right now.
Oh, no. Yeah, it is a little, we're right under the,
AC.
Drink your hot coffee. To start off the podcast right, we have coffee, and we have it in mugs, and we're going to tell you about our mugs.
Because me and my wife have 1,000 billion mugs in this household.
Yes, and we need to put you in the space with us here. Tell us about your mug.
I am drinking my coffee out of, my wife tells me, a special edition Harry Potter mug. It's got like a painting around it of Hagrid's hut with the pumpkin patch into the Forbidden Forest with a centaur and the car with a spider on it.
Ooh, exciting.
You know Harry Potter, you should know what I'm talking about with that scene to an extent.
Yeah,
those areas.
It should be clear.
But yeah, apparently it's a special edition. Not a lot of them made. I don't know how my wife got it. I don't know if she ever told me the story.
Do you see any like that's like the scene, one of the scenes where there's the time turner being in play. So do you see any hiding wizards and witches? Like anyone hiding behind the pumpkins?
I do not. I see a unicorn.
Any sign of
I see a hippogriff.
Magical mischief?
Well, I mean, it's Harry Potter. There's always magical mischief somewhere.
It's probably a hex on that mug. I wouldn't drink out of it.
Too late.
You are cursed.
That explains a lot, actually.
Well, my mug is not that exciting, but it says Studebaker on it. And I think that's fun. And I guess, is that what a Studebaker actually is? Like an old-timey car?
Let's find out.
Like, it looks like the original, like, Model T, like Ford Model T. Only maybe it's the original Studebaker. So, anyway, so that's what I picked for my hot beverage to be in.
I'm looking up what a Studebaker
is. Okay. Let us know.
Yeah, I mean, this is popping up for Studebaker.
Okay, like old cars.
So old cars. This is like the OG.
This
looks super
old-timey car fans
are sitting there slapping their heads right now.
Pulling their hair out right now. They cannot believe we didn't get that.
It's not a car. It's a first century wagon.
Come on. You don't know what a Studebaker is? My first car.
Oh my, we got some old listeners.
All right, so... so we like to talk, when we start off in the Bridge of Two podcast, we like to talk about the fantasy realms, sci-fi realms that we've been hanging out in that week, I guess is the way you can put it.
Yeah.
That's the way I've just put it.
What you've been doing, what you've been reading, playing, watching.
Should I go first?
Yeah, you can go first this time. I usually go first.
Okay. Yeah, so I've been playing Kingdom Hearts 3 and really enjoying it. The we just got done with the Pirates of the Caribbean world, pretty much.
Much better in the third game than in the second one.
Oh yeah, I could not. Yeah, the second one it was very. I mean, the third one it's tropey, but it's really well done. In the third one, the second one, I feel like I couldn't wait to get done with that world.
That world is one of my least. It's one of my least favorites in Kingdom Hearts 2, specifically because of the mechanics of fighting the undead pirates.
Okay.
When they're not in moonlight, you can't hurt them.
Oh.
And that becomes the most irritating mechanic ever,
I remember that.
in my opinion.
You've played that way more recently than I have, I think.
Yeah, I just went through 2, so.
Right. But yeah, I do remember being like kind of like excited when I got to that world, and I was like, "Oh, can we get this over with?" But I liked what was really fun was being in your own ship and just like going around. Like it was like a little open world. Kingdom Hearts, doesn't usually get super open world, and it was probably the most open world where you just can go to any island and look for crabs to make your ship better.
Very Assassin's Creed-y.
Yeah, remind me of the fourth Assassin's Creed, Black Flag.
Black Flag. That was a good one. That was a fun one.
That was a fun one. But yeah, it was fun. And I'm getting more used to like the air step mechanics too, and like using them. So like that's that's where you like target something and then you can just like zoom over to it real fast.
Oh yes.
Because like you'll be like on one end of the island and then you're like, "Where's my ship? Oh, there it is." Just like target it and just boom,
that's right.
Go right to it.
I do
that's
remember
nice. But yeah, so that's been fun. The end cutscene of that world was super intense. Like first of all, it was really good. Like the graphics were really good. It was like a cut, like it was like a movie, like a cinematic.
Yeah,
and the way it tied it into the main story of the actual movie, where it's like. Spoiler alert! If you haven't seen Pirates of the Caribbean 3,
I think we've hit our statute of limitations on that one.
I know.
Actually, I don't think I've ever seen Kingdom Hearts or not Kingdom Hearts, Pirates of the Caribbean 3.
Really?
I've seen 1, 2, 4, and that's it.
Well, you've already had it spoiled because you played Kingdom Hearts 3. So like,
does it? I thought it was the story of the second one, not the third one.
It's the third one. It's the third one because
maybe I have seen the third one.
The third one is where I mean, it might have had stuff from the second one too, but like it ends on the third one where they're like on the ship. What's his name? Davy Jones is like kills Will Turner or like stabs him in the heart or chest or whatever, and he's gonna die.
And he takes the heart.
And then Jack's like,
yeah, that's number 2. Davy Jones is in number 2. It is number 2.
Oh,
I'm almost certain. Okay, hold on. Now it's gonna bother me.
Oh man, I thought it was number 3 because I thought that was like the way. I guess was Will Turner not in the third one?
No, I think he was in the third one. I could be wrong. Like I said, I don't think I've ever seen the third one, so...
So it was like Pirates of the Caribbean, Curse of the Black Pearl, and now I think you're right. Now you say that Dead Man's Chest is the second one, so that would make sense. So what's the third one? At World's End, I think?
I think third one was... Yeah, and that's one I didn't see. It was At World's End.
And then there's been 2 more.
Yeah, those didn't have...
I saw the fourth one.
Those didn't have Will Turner and what's her name in it?
And Keira Knightley, yeah. Or... Elizabeth Swann.
That's Keira Knightley?
Yeah.
Huh. The more you know.
I mean, you can't really tell.
I don't know my actors and actresses very well, so.
That's why I'm here, my friend. Just call me up.
Hey, who's the actress in Pirates of the Caribbean 3?
Or actor.
Or actor.
Not just actress. Yeah, I don't know. I'm going off a little bit about that, but it's just a really well done world, and I'm really enjoying and getting into Kingdom Hearts 3 more, and I'm excited to keep playing it. Yeah, but at first I was kind of bummed out about it, but I think maybe 2, just playing it, you kind of get back into that Kingdom Hearts, the mechanics of Kingdom Hearts and how everything works, and get more acclimated to it.
It's gonna be so. You said you're planning on going back to and playing 2 after 3, right? Because your daughter wants to play.
Because Ellie wants to play.
That's gonna be
some of the worlds on that world.
That'll be very interesting.
Transition
because the gameplay in 2 is magnificent and probably one of the best.
Yeah, definitely.
But it is a lot. I don't want to say slower, but not as flowy maybe as 3. 3 is just a very flowy.
Well, I mean the the mobility
Yes,
in 3 is really good.
Very different in 2.
I mean, the mobility in 2 was way better than the mobility in 1. You know, you can get around a lot faster, but
more combos, like attack combos and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But
I do miss the forms in 2.
Yes.
I thought the forms were really cool, way of doing magic,
Anti-form and all that good stuff.
Anyway, that I feel like I took up a lot of time there. But that was I also played a little bit of a game called Warframe.
Good game.
You played that?
I have played Warframe. The like sci-fi ninja MMO shooter, third-person shooter.
That's a great way to.
I'm pretty sure that's how it's marketed.
Pack it together, yeah.
Yeah, I haven't played much of it, but I played a little bit of it on my computer way back when, on the PS4 way back when. I think I even played on the Switch at one point for a little bit.
It's free to play, and they literally every month or a couple weeks, there's a 3 gigabyte update. They put so much into that game.
Yep.
That I have not even touched and probably never will touch, because when I do want to play it, it's like, okay, I just get in. It's a game that you can just kind of get in and have a satisfying kind of experience of just, I like using the bow, just like
that was the one I used.
Filling some, turning some enemies into pincushions and then call it a night. But
that's the thing about those games, though, like especially the MMOs, the ones that are so expansive. Like a good one for me is Star Wars: The Old Republic, the MMO.
Right.
I want to play it, and I do play it occasionally, but it's so hard because there's so much in it. And
right.
I don't have the time to play all of it, but I want to.
Yeah.
And
it's hard to feel like you're making progress too. Yes. Sometimes.
And I love MMOs. Well, MMOs are hard to just sit down for an hour and play. Like I could sit down and play Kingdom Hearts for an hour and I feel like I've made progress or whatever. But it's hard to sit down on an MMO and play for an hour. I mean, I guess if you're at endgame, it's different. But when you're still making through the game, leveling up.
Warframe is a little more faster paced though, because it's not. You do go to people and get missions and stuff, but when you get into a level, it's usually 15. 20 minutes.
Yeah, I do remember that aspect of it.
And so you can kind of get in, get out, and...
Almost kind of like playing Call of Duty, but with story and cool.
Yeah. But... that's that, besides doing that, starting the D&D campaign.
Did start the D&D campaign. That is something we've both done this past week.
We did.
Josh,
together.
Just us. No. No, we have a D&D group, and I was DMing for a little bit, but being in school now, pretty much full-time and working full-time, I don't have the time or the mental capacity to make an entire story of D&D, even one that's pre-written down in an adventure path, because I obviously go off script way too much. So I asked Josh to take over for me. So he decided to DM while I'm in school, and we had our first session last Sunday. Today's Monday.
Yeah, it would have had to be last Sunday because we're not doing it. We were doing it every other week, and so we're not doing it this Sunday. So yeah.
And I had a blast playing a character. Already intrigued in the story. Had 0 combat and already in loving it. It was.
I'm glad. There almost was a lot of combat. That would have been a lot of thinking on my feet. So I was, since I don't think everyone in the party will be listening to this, so I'll tip my hand a little bit more. I wanted them when we started to be like, to kind of give them options and be like, okay, here's what you're here to do, but you don't really know much, and here's some places you could go. I mean, I started them right by a town, a pretty good sized town, and with some stuff that maybe would interest them to check to just see what's going on in the town. But I didn't want to make it so enticing that they felt like we're supposed to go in the town, and then they went in. So I didn't. And since the town wasn't their actual destination, they were going on a little further to a big capital city to talk to the people that had called them on this to fulfill this mission. And so they were like, well, we were called to this by these people in this capital city, so let's not dawdle around in this town. Let's just go straight there. Well, I had kind of pretty much a bulk of my planning that I had really, really detailed planning on was in that small town.
No, that's hilarious.
So when they're like, let's go to the city, I was like, okay. And
Crap.
I had, I mean, I had like a general idea of what would happen when you guys got there. But yeah.
Boy, were we surprised.
So what happened, when you got to the city? Did you have a warm welcome?
Well, no, of course we show up, and we were supposed to have been invited into this city by their city council, basically. And we show up, pull out this letter, and are immediately surrounded by guards and are being led to the prison. And we're all like, what? And they ended up going to prison. We ended up almost got into there's like 20 guards around us and almost went into a combat with them. Don't know how that would have went.
I tried very hard. I was trying very hard to, the plan was pretty much for you guys to go to prison.
Well, that's the thing is, so...
But you guys did, I don't know how... You seemed more open to it.
Well, I'm trying to play my character very, very, both like true neutral, but also like a good neutral. As in, like, he's a very neutral character in just of how he views things. He has one specific goal in mind,
right?
With how he's going with things. But other than that, like, he's not necessarily for or against most things to an extent. I mean, like, he does to an extent want to help people, which I think he's more of a good neutral because he wants to help. But if in helping involves taking out 5 other people, he might do that. It just depends. But he also I don't want to say is cocky, but is also very confident in his abilities. And so, with the whole going to prison, like, my character has a few abilities. I can Misty Step. So you throw me in prison, I'll just Misty Step outside the doors. I can also calm. I can also, after talking to Josh and having this, my weapon is actually attuned to me, and I can actually, as a bonus action, call my weapon to my hand.
Right.
So I was thinking about that as well. Like, well, let me go in this. And so the thing is the city council
who
had originally called us there were in this prison. So when I found that, I was like, oh, well, let's not fight. Let's just go in. No one else knows these abilities of my character, and I didn't want to in story. I don't want to. I'm trying to stay in character.
And you would have been right. And you would have been, which I think that's cool that you did that because. In character, you were surrounded by guards, so it would have been hard for you to communicate that
without it coming out. Exactly, and I wanted to try my best to stay in character. And so eventually, we ended up talking them into.
Barely,
I think Stephanie's character persuaded
Stephanie
her little Naffling.
Because I was like, I just couldn't think of how this captain, was going to let you guys not, like he had his orders, he was following them to a T. You guys came in and you showed your letters from this civilian council that had been determined by the time you guys got there had been determined that they were traitors and they had to be thrown in prison. So when you guys said, "Hey, look, here's the seal from the civilian council," it was like, "Oh, that's all he needed to know to throw you guys in prison." So I was like, I can't just let them just go just because this would be really hard for me to do as a DM, like 24 people fighting 4 people. So we was not anywhere near prepared for that.
We probably would have ended up.
It was cracking me up though. Caleb was like, one of our party members. He was like, "I will not give up my weapon under any circumstances." And I was like, "Oh man!"
Which, to be fair, he's a half-orc. He's probably playing a half-orc fighter. I mean, he's probably playing very much to his character.
Yeah, I mean, I could tell too. Yeah, I could tell that was like him being in character, and I was like, okay. And then so your wife was like, can I try to, talk to the captain and just try to explain things? And, she was being creative and she rolled really good.
And we had to, and I like to, I'm glad that worked out because I think that my wife is very brand new to D&D and has a hard time with the role-playing aspect and thinking of things to do. Most of the times when we used to play, she was very quiet. I think part of the time too is because I'm DMing, so she can't really play off me as much as she might want to as far as like a character-to-character thing.
Mm-hmm.
So it was really nice seeing her really try to think outside the box and role play, and then for her to be rewarded by it. Oh, this actually worked. Oh my gosh! Like we didn't have to fight this guy. I was able to talk to him into, letting us talk to someone else.
Right.
And then I think that I'm just glad that happened because I think that's going to help her start branching out more into being able to role play more and get more comfortable with it and making up ideas. And since then, for the rest of the episode, she was role playing very well. She was talking to other NPCs and stuff like that.
Yeah, and it actually like I need to have that character reoccur because that kind of created like a a little bit of a bond between that character, the captain, because he listened to her character, and
she ended up liking the kid,
liking
him. Like
he's so nice.
He's nice. I like
he's
him.
a nice guy. Yeah. So
and then we met a couple people who I want to kill already. The speaker or whatever. I can't remember his name.
The advisor?
The advisor to the king. I want to kill the king already, and I've never even met him. Sounds like a little baby. So there's that. Kind of, not to go into too much more detail, but,
I can't wait for the next session.
We met the bard, who was supposed to be apparently one of the original 4 heroes, who was just a crackhead singing songs in the bar that did not give a flying flip about anything. But that's also I'm gonna say I am very already one session in. I am very, very intrigued by this story, and I'm very excited to play in it, and can't wait to see what continues to happen.
It was it was a lot of fun to just dangle the little stuff out there that's like, you guys realized in the tavern, they realized they after everything, they almost went to prison, but they didn't. They go to this tavern in the city, and they're trying to figure out what they're going to do, and they end up realizing that, like, one of the founders of the town from like 100 years ago, which the threat has some relation to that, it seems like. I mean, is that fair to say?
That's what we're getting. That's what I'm gathering.
We're getting at? Okay.
Considering that they don't even he doesn't even remember what the threat was.
Right. Yeah. So there's one of the characters that was one of the founders of the town. He's a bard, and he's just in the tavern, just playing away. And then they find out that 2 of the civilian council members were actually founders of the town too. So it's not just like, oh, it's the civilian council. It's also people that were around 100 years ago. And
I remember too, I'm sorry to jump in, but I remember just sitting there talking with the bartender guy. And he talking about the 4, and he's like, yeah, we still, they're all, the bard, and I remember just thinking, like, in my mind, I was like, no way. And I was like, wait a minute. And I had my character turns around and looks at the bard, and he goes, is he? And he goes, yeah. And I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, because I was like, I made sure to mention that there was a gnome bard in the corner by the fireplace playing an accordion. And so whenever he's talking to the bartender, and the bartender talks about the gnome bard that's still in the city, and I was just like, I connected 2 I was like, oh my gosh, he's here. It's him. I was like, I should be talking to him right now. And then I go talk to him, and I get nothing out of him. Other than the other two council members, or other 2 party members were part of the of the council in prison. Right. Which maybe you want to go to prison again, even more. Yes, I'm very interested to see what happens next, because... Which I tried almost talking to the party into, but they're like... and it might be a good idea. But anyway, we've spent a lot of time with that. We'll keep everybody in tune with what's going on with that. I think there's a lot of interesting directions that it could go depending on how people decide. I have some things too I want to work in, I have some more things I want to entice you guys with as other possible, like, options and leads. Well, that's cool. Yeah, what about you? Not much this week, sadly. I read a couple more chapters in Rhythm of War. Loving Die Hard and You Were Through. Interesting to see what's going to happen there, because that seems like it's just a mess of a mess. Oh man. Don't even say anything, because such a mess. I'm two chapters a week is what I'm getting right now, tops, and it's killing me. I can't imagine, because I could not stop reading that book when I started reading that. So I did that a little bit. I have not been on to play any Kingdom Hearts. I am playing through Birth by Sleep. I wasn't able to play any this week. Yeah. With studying and right. We had a test and all that. My brother's in town. Still listening to Critical Role at work, as well as I was listening to some Star Wars theories today, or just character, like watching a video on Nihilus, which is always fun. The World Eater. I also love eating worlds. Interesting too. This is a slightly off topic, but I guess it fits into the sci-fi type realm. I watched a little video, not like a little, it was actually an hour some long video, on the UFO spacecraft that's been declassified. So that it was a more biblical, spiritual look at it. Interesting. There's a podcast called Cultish. Okay. Where they go into the occult and stuff like that. Okay. And they actually had a couple guys on were talking about these declassified UFOs and how they can be perceived in the sense, kind of talking about how Like a prophetic thing?
Not a prophetic thing, but how they're probably more spiritual in nature than maybe more material in nature. How a lot of people will think in the more materialistic way of like, oh, they must be aliens and from a different, like extraterrestrial, whereas they're probably more spiritual and from a different dimension. And how that relates to, you know, as a Christian, we're both Christians, and that how it relates to in the spiritual realm. And this culture is by Reformed Christian guys.
Interesting.
It was interesting.
You're super creeping me out now.
I mean, dude,
like when you look at those videos, they do like the way that, and I mean, like the people on those videos say it, like it's the movement is not like it's not obeying the laws of
like
physics.
5,000 miles per hour, then an immediate stop and right
it's
right
not
turn.
Yeah, it's not obeying the laws of physics.
Shutting down nuclear power plants, like starting up and just shutting them down. Like it's
really?
apparently, but that's another clip is like where they literally go like it happened in the U.S. and I think in Russia. Where they hovered over and literally just
and it turned stuff on?
Turned on the stuff and then like would just, or like it's already turning on, starting up, and then just shuts off.
Oh,
like they have control over it.
Well, I mean,
you know, and
there's all sorts of paranormal, you know, stuff out there that really can't be explained.
Well, that's exactly.
So yeah, that's definitely a valid take. I think if you're you know, believe in the supernatural, which
it's interesting too, hearing like even like because they were talking about even some atheists and people who don't believe in the spiritual to an extent, like that, about how they even they are like they don't necessarily believe that it's extraterrestrial, it's just another dimension.
Right.
Beings from another dimension, like, you know, like fairy planes or whatever. You know, obviously I come at from a different perspective than that because of my theology and everything like that. But it was interesting. It's creepy.
That's
creepy.
Interesting.
It got brought up because my sister just went and saw The Conjuring 3.
Okay.
So we were talking about the spiritual and everything that my dad started talking about. My dad had told me about the cultish and how they just did that and how he, you know, because my dad's interested in all that stuff as well.
Right.
And so that's just how that started. And then we started, I think my brother and my dad started talking about that movie, The Fourth Kind, I think is what it's called. Or no, The Fourth Kind. I don't remember. It's a movie.
There's a movie called The Fourth Kind. I haven't seen it.
I think it's a scary movie back. I went and saw it with my brother and dad when I was younger, and it's terrified me to death. But they try to label it as like this. It was supposed to be, it's a real story apparently, but the chick was like abducted by aliens and her kids were abducted and everything like that. But when you watch the video in the clips, like it almost seems more demonic in nature than an alien. I mean, I think they literally are like the voices are like actually speaking in like Armenic. Is that what it's called? Aramaic or
Aramaic.
Aramaic. I think they're actually speaking like Aramaic.
Are you talking about a movie? Or are you talking about like clips from like real life?
From real life that they played. Apparently.
Okay.
Allegedly. That's what I was looking for. Allegedly. So that was just. I mean, it's not necessarily sci-fi, but I mean, it's spiritual, and it's that's kind of branches in. You know.
I mean, so the reason, you know, one of the valid reasons to pursue allowing, you know, your imagination to enjoy a fantasy sci-fi stuff is because there is a in my belief, you know, a higher kind of meta narrative, you know, that's built into our world by God, and so there's a cosmic struggle happening that was prophesied in the book of Genesis. If you look back at the fall, whenever God prophesied or said that the serpent would bruise the heel of the seed of the woman, but the seed of the woman would crush the head of the serpent. That cosmic struggle plays out.
I mean, it's the first story of good and evil.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what most fantasy, sci-fi. I mean,
absolutely.
give or take a few things like grimdark has become a thing, and more comedic fantasy is a thing. But like for the most part, like most sci-fi is and fantasy, specifically fantasy, is driven by that good versus evil narrative, right. You know, and that the good, very original from our viewpoint, from our belief system and our theology, the very first story of good and evil is the biblical story.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and even the archetype, the creation, fall, redemption archetype, where you have things starting out more utopian. There's some type of evil or sin or something that somebody does something and it breaks everything. There's a fall, and then that's where the meat of the story takes place, is in the fallen world trying to get back to Eden, essentially.
Mhm.
I mean, that happens. I mean, that's in so many, especially fantasy archetypes.
Yes, fantasy is a big one that you
so
see. Yeah,
and that comes from. I think it's built. It's kind of built into us. It's humanity's mythology that connects us all the mythologies together. And Tolkien called Christianity the true myth. Myth being a way of it not being like a lie or something that's not true, but being something that is used to understand and explain the world around us, and it's true. Like a story. So myth is story, true, like a true story. So
that's interesting, and yeah. So that was just
yeah.
So anyway, aliens are real, but they're not what you think they are. That's
Probably
what I'm getting
not.
at there. They're not necessarily demons, but spiritual beings.
I mean, some people. I mean, I know Christians who believe that, that there could be other higher forms of intelligence that aren't human and aren't angelic or fallen angels.
That's actually one of the guys said.
And that it doesn't contradict scripture. And
that's what one of the guys said. One of the guys I was doing this video was actually said, he's like, we don't know, who are we to say that there isn't another physical being out there created by God on a different planet that just maybe aren't created in their image or in his image. We're created in God's image.
Right.
Who's to say that these intelligent beings aren't created, just not created in his image? There's something in the Bible that says yes or no.
Which is even more, to me, that's even more scary. Like intelligent life that doesn't bear like the image of God, or like, you know what I mean? Like doesn't have the, I don't know if that's, if that theologically.
I don't either.
Not,
I don't either.
But anyway, but yeah.
But anyway, there is that possibility.
Yeah.
But anyway, it was just very interesting. And if you want to check out that video, Cultish Facebook. It's only on Facebook right now.
Okay.
That specific video. They do other stuff into the occult and all that. I haven't watched any of it. My dad has, but it's all interesting.
Nice.
But that's pretty much all I've done this week. Not much. Like I said, just a lot of school and YouTube and podcasts. Shout out to Brandon Sanderson's new podcast.
Yeah, Brandon Sanderson, Brando Sando. He's not doing enough.
Apparently, he's not doing enough.
He had to start a podcast. He heard we were starting a podcast.
Of course, he has to start. Right? We started
ours. He had to, get on it. But it was, that was fun.
It was.
They didn't have a name. I hope they keep it. Right now, it's called Intentionally Blank, and I hope they keep it that.
They should. At this point, they really should.
I just love how it was just pretty raw. It was just like, we're starting a podcast, and then at the end, Brandon Sanderson's just like, we don't have an outro. And then it ends pretty much.
But yeah, so that's it for me, The only other thing that I've done this week is me and my wife are now caught up on The Bad Batch.
Yes.
I have different thoughts on it now than I did last week.
Really?
I mean, I still...
Oh, sorry, I said that so loud.
I still agree with my initial...
I just didn't expect you to say that.
Well, I still agree with my initial reaction of the episodes that we watched. But these next two episodes, if they keep it going the way it's going now...
Yeah.
I was very impressed and fulfilled and...
Cool.
Well, part of... If anyone has watched the Clone Wars TV show...
I have. Some.
And they've watched... you've watched maybe the first two seasons. You're like, oh, this is a kid's show or it can be a kid's show.
Right.
And then you start going to the third season, the fourth season... And you're like, this is not a kid's show.
Yeah.
Because then it starts talking about war and people sacrificing themselves and brotherhood.
It's taking place
and everything.
in the Clone Wars.
I mean, it's brutal and death and so many. You can no longer argue that it is kids can watch it, but I think even a lot of the things in it are beyond some kids' minds.
Yeah.
So to argue that it's just a kid's show is mind-boggling. So when I went into Bad Batch, Dave Filoni is still the guy doing it and all that. So I kind of go in expecting. This can be seen as a kid's show, but there's going to be a lot of adult concepts in it. You kind of expected it to kind of pick up right where the Clone Wars, not necessarily in terms of the tone. Yes, in terms of the tone, which the first episode kind of did. Yeah. But then you got the next two, and I get it's fun and it was cool, but it definitely. And I remember talking to my dad about this. It just seemed very much like it just seemed very kiddish, which. Yeah. It's a kid's show, so it's weird saying that, but having watched the Clone Wars, it's not a kid's show. Right. Well, anyway, going into these last two episodes that we just watched, without spoiling too much, it just... I don't even know how... It got dark in a good way. Yeah. Right. So,
I saw what you mentioned on the last podcast, that it felt like they were trying to push Omega fitting in and being useful too much, to the point that it almost felt like kind of not believable. Like they were bringing the Bad Batch down a little bit so that she would seem useful, which I definitely saw that a little bit. I mean, most of the ways that she ended up being useful were ways that were within like her ability.
Yes, it was within her ability. It just,
but I understand, what
I just want her to be. I want her to be useful without having the Bad Batch have to be brought down for her to be useful. Because I think I like her as a character. I have nothing wrong with her as a character. I think she's an interesting character. I just had a hard time believing the Bad Batch being brought so low.
You know what I thought about? I thought about Ahsoka. So Ahsoka, when she was first in, at least, and I mean, I don't remember, like I wasn't necessarily talking with people about this, but I remember, I heard people talk about Ahsoka when she was first introduced. The fandom, Star Wars fandom, didn't take to her immediately.
Yes, I do.
They kind of felt like, oh, here's this character we're supposed to like care about, and they're really trying to give us a lot of time with her so that we care about her. But now she's like inseparable from Star Wars.
Star Wars, yeah, at this point.
And she's a huge favorite. So I'm not saying that's what Omega's going to be. I was just thinking it's maybe a similar feeling at the where Omega's kind of like, why do I care about Omega?
Well, that's my thing though, is
this character in here.
It's not that I don't care about Omega. I actually like her as a character, and I think she'll be a good character. My problem is I don't like. I was having a problem with them with this insane elite team being so easily whooped, and then having this little girl help them.
Yeah,
I want Omega to be brought up and be a cool character, while also having the Bad Batch be what they're supposed to be, which is best of the best.
Yeah.
And you start to see, like, that second to last episode, you start to see that they're stuck in a crazy situation and they're just whooping butt.
Yeah.
And Omega's helping out too. She's not doing the best at times and she doesn't need help, but at the same time, she's doing good work, She is, and they're showing character progression. Like, they're showing that she doesn't start off good at everything, better than everyone at everything. Which is good, and I like that.
Like, some characters may have been portrayed in certain Star Wars movies we won't mention, but
right.
But yeah, she she's not good at like shooting that bow thing, and she's trying to help out, and she's kind of making things like them have to come save her and stuff like that, which is the classic but believable trope for like a character that is younger and trying to fit in.
She's getting better, but
she's learning her place. She's learning what she's good at, and recognizing the how she can help. And I think, what's making me make her more likable is her and Wrecker's relationship.
Yes. So I'm not going to go into details because it just aired. So
okay.
I mean, who knows when we're going to post this podcast, but like still. It's still new enough to where I don't want to try. I want to try my best not to spoil too much. But that last episode they just did.
Yeah.
First of all, the whole thing with just Wrecker was just heartbreaking.
Yeah.
To watch all of that. Especially like that's the thing. That's when they brought in that aspect of this is an adult show with some adult concepts, where like I want to talk about, but this crazy part is about to happen,
right? And
she has to make this decision. And luckily she doesn't end up having to make it, but like it gets to that point where this little girl, technically little girl, has to make this decision, this base life or death decision.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh crap. Like, whoa.
Yeah.
And luckily everything works out, but
they had kind of laid the groundwork, the tracks earlier, because at the end of episode 3, Wrecker, she like didn't have a place to sleep on the ship, and at the very end of the episode, Wrecker like makes a little room for her, and that was kind of when I started to kind of feel like a little more heartwarming feeling. That's like
friendship,
because Wrecker, I don't know, Wrecker was not my favorite character. He's a cool character, but he was kind of like a character that served the purpose of being a strong character. But him taking to Omega and like trying to bring her in actually made him a more interesting character, more likable, and also made her more likable too, because you're like, happy to see her like feel like she belongs.
And it sets up this
tension later on. Without going into a whole lot, but
to getting into this basically almost heartbreaking scene, where we're like, it's just
we'll have to come back to it so we can talk more detail about.
Yes, this episode in particular, we're going to talk more about
because there's a lot of stuff like with does it matter if we say who the surprise? I don't know, a surprise character, but the character that shows up.
I mean,
we don't have to. There's a cool character.
Rex. Captain Rex shows up. I'll do it. I'll say it. You can look at the trailer and know that it's Captain Rex. We all knew it was coming.
Yeah, that's true.
But he shows up, and so that also brings up another aspect, because now you're going back to the Clone Wars and in this aspect of, I mean, he even says at one point, like, I've seen what those chips do to my brothers, and I don't want to bury. I do not want to bury any more of my brothers.
His reaction to it kind of gave me chills. Like his instant reaction of like reaching for his blaster because he's seen how it just overrides your personality and everything.
Not only seen it, he's felt it.
And then it turned, if I say much more, then it's just going to be
we'll come back to that episode because it was a good episode. But as another aside, though, real quick, kind of off topic, not really, it's on topic, but not with story. Not really a spoiler. That planet they go to in that episode, Bracca.
It's from Jedi Order, Fallen Order.
Yeah. That's that. During that episode, Kyle Kestis should be on that planet.
You think so?
I'm pretty sure that's where he crashed, and he stayed on that planet until he ended up leaving.
Oh, he did. Okay, because I was trying to place it. I was like, because when Order 66 happened, he was like a teenager, and then when the game starts, he's definitely like early 20s or something. But if he crashed on that planet, I forgot that.
I think that there's actually a theory. I actually watched a video on today that there's a theory that the ship that they were on
may have been his ship.
Because his ship was apparently over Bracca.
Yeah.
When Order 66 happened.
Okay.
Whatever. So that's just as an aside. That's kind of an interesting little tidbit thrown in there.
No, that was really, some of those kinds of things were really cool. Also in episode 5, the Rancor. That's totally
Jabba's Rancor.
The one that almost episode kills 6, right?
Not only,
we know the name of the Rancor is named Moochie.
which is weird, but also funny. But
it's weird because you're like,
it's an information that you've never thought you would have wanted, and you still don't necessarily want it, but it's there, and you're like, okay, I'll take it.
It, I don't know. It was like sometimes that kind of stuff can feel like, oh, they're just trying to like
fan
service. But it didn't really feel like fan service. It just made it feel more like it's really taking place in a connected world.
Well, that's the thing is it didn't feel very fan service-y to me because once again, it's not something I ever thought I wanted the information to.
Right.
I never once watched Star Wars. I was like, what's the name?
Right. It wasn't like Han Solo of like, how did Han get his name? It's not like they were telling you the information you would always wonder. Like, what's the Kessel Run?
As another aside, another little tangent.
What's that?
I can't believe you got it. Han Solo. It's like, what? No.
That's it.
No.
I'm Solo. I'm a loner.
So, Han Solo. Oh, that's your name.
That was the movie that I liked I liked aspects of that movie, but that was that kind of movie where it's like telling that story makes it seem less interesting and less cool than just like having this character show up and. But anyway, not to get too much into that.
It was a good Star Wars story, mind you. I just don't think I didn't like the Han Solo aspect of it.
Yeah,
love the Star Wars story aspect of it, not the Han Solo aspect of it. But
and then at the we'll save that. That's still episode 7, so I won't get into that. But I'm at this point I'm like super on board with the show. Very interested.
Did you also notice in episode 6 the 2 smugglers who they were? Have you watched?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I saw that arc. And I didn't love it in the Clone Wars, but
they were fun characters in Bad Batch.
But yeah, they actually, their part in that episode was actually really fun and not like annoying or anything. And so, yeah, it was cool.
And I think I like how he used them to. The story used them to kind of push the Bad Batch into doing more of what might be good.
Right. Yeah. That was that kind of got them to ask that question of why are we doing what we were doing? what could we be doing? What should we be doing? Because we're just out here just making money, being mercenaries. Is that really what?
I love how they're all just dads now, though.
How what?
They're all just dads now.
Yeah.
Well, there's Hunter's
Omega
the dad.
has 4 dads.
Hunter's the dad, and he's got all the uncles.
Because Crosshair was the 4th one, right? Oh no, Echo.
Echo.
Yeah, there's
Echo and Tick.
An Australian accent, or is that might be a New Zealand accent?
It's Kaminoan accent.
Kaminoan, yeah, it's New Zealand then.
Anyway,
yeah, good stuff. And that show is a 16 episode show, so we're not even halfway through.
Are they only doing 16? They're not going more than that?
It looks like it's only 16. I was thinking it was less than that.
Ooh.
So I was like, when I saw that, I was like, oh man, we're not even at the halfway point yet. So there's a lot more for them to do. It might be good. Because, when you get like a 23 episode show, you have these lulls where you have like 2-3 episodes that are just like...
Yeah, well, you start throwing it... Well, it's when they start throwing in filler.
Right.
But they've already kind of thrown...
that's one. Yeah, that's a side thing. But that's one nice thing about like streaming services. There's less like, this is the cookie cutter length of a TV show. It has to be this many episodes. And so, because I've seen lots of shows where it's just like, I can't imagine what they're going to do for 20 episodes, But anyway.
Well, what do you say we take a break right now?
Yeah.
Go grab some drinks.
We got some drinks to try out. You guys can hear us try. And
I think I need to let my cat inside.
Okay. We're going to let Syl, the honor spren cat, inside.
We did name our cat Syl, me and my wife.
We'll be back.
We recording?
And we're recording. We're back. We have a treat for ourselves. We hope. Yeah, so we tried where the Guinness... It was like Guinness cold brew...
Stout or something.
Stout. Like it was supposed to have like a cold brew taste to it.
It was...
Didn't hit it.
Yeah, it wasn't like awful, but it just wasn't something I would want to drink.
Right. Yeah, but so we got this time. There's a Florida brewery called Funky Buddha, and they have a limited series of a drink called Void Shaker. It is a barrel-aged stout.
It is limited series. Let's see.
So save it. Never drink it, but no. So we have opened them. You can't hear the bottles open.
This does say, "Let your funk flag fly,"
and that's what we intend to do today on the Bridge of Two podcast.
Yeah, very progressive.
I like the name Void Shaker. Okay, let's do this.
Ready?
You're ready.
All right, I'm gonna try it.
That is a.
Ooh, that's a strong beer.
That's a strong taste. The smell's really good.
That has got a weird
It's like a caramelly almost.
It is. It's very, very strong. I mean, it is 11% alcohol.
Yeah,
that's a lot for a beer.
It is, but it's also a stout. So it reminds me of the reason I got it is because there's this one beer called Dragon's Milk. That's a bourbon barrel aged stout. And we had that before, and it's really good. This reminds me a lot of that. I feel like it's a little sweeter.
Sweeter. That initial swig was. Whew.
I like it. I like it better than last week's or last podcast.
Yes, it is very.
I think I can keep drinking this. That one I couldn't.
This is very sweet. Very interesting. It does have what this did say. Our limited time bourbon barrel aged imperial stouts are mysteriously dark, perfectly balanced, and totally funky.
Yeah, so it's very specific flavor there. No, it doesn't really... It's mysteriously dark.
Interesting.
It is mysteriously dark.
It is mysteriously dark and mysteriously sweet.
And funky and stuff.
Funky.
Void Shaker.
It's a dope name, Void Shaker.
It is, yeah. Well, yeah, so that's the drink we'll be drinking. So
we real quickly need to talk about this Lord of the Rings anime that you have mentioned to me.
Yeah, sometimes you're just going around, you're just living your life, and you're just,
as one does,
and then from the sky, something that you never would have thought to ask for just drops.
Something you never thought you wanted. But
into
you
your
did.
lap.
You ever so did.
So I don't know if this is because the Lord of the Rings show is like being worked on by Amazon, and maybe Warner Brothers still has some rights to make stuff Lord of the Rings, and so they're like, let's do this too because people are going to be into Lord of the Rings right now.
Mm-hmm.
But
when are people not into Lord of the Rings?
Well, that's a good question. Yeah, ever since 2003, pretty much it's been dominating. Yeah, so there's an anime going to be an anime Lord of the Rings movie. I think it's just a movie. I don't think it's a show.
Interesting.
I think I could probably look it up. But it's called War of the Rohirrim, and it's going to take place like 400 years before Lord of the Rings, the actual events of Lord of the Rings, and it's going to focus on the Rohirrim, so then the country of Rohan, which I'm so glad this happens because I love talking about Lord of the Rings, and it gives us an excuse to start talking about it without it being a whole episode. But yeah, the Rohan is like the home of the horse lords, known for their cavalry. And they're kind of reminiscent of a more like Nordic Viking type, Beowulf like style culture. And there was a king named Hammerhand. He built the Helm's Deep, the castle that's in the second movie where they have this last stand. That's Hammerhand built that. And apparently, there's this just huge wars and battles going on when he was king, and it became a famous part of Rohan's history. And they're making a movie about Hammerhand and the Rohirrim, and I can't wait.
It does look like it's a movie. I looked it up.
It's a movie, okay. And I heard it's going to be in theaters. And Philippa Boyens, she was one of the writers on the Lord of the Rings trilogy and the Hobbit movies. So there was Peter Jackson's wife, Fran Walsh, and Philippa Boyens, and she's writing on this one, this movie too. So that's some good credentials there, going for it.
I'll be interested. I do like myself a good anime, so I'll be intrigued.
And Lord of the Rings.
I mean, what it could be better?
I mean, Tolkien, I think he'd be proud. No, probably not, but...
No, because there's 100% going to be some sort of nastiness coming out of it.
Like super bloody?
No, I mean like the other side of nastiness.
Oh.
That it just tends to follow anime.
Hopefully not. I mean, hopefully not, because that's not really the motif or the aesthetic of Lord of the Rings.
But that'll be interesting. I'm excited for it.
The guy that is directing it, he's directed a lot of and written a lot of Ghost in the Shell, which I don't know much about. I just know it's a popular anime.
I know of it. I haven't watched or read any of it. So
yeah, so that's some good anime credentials there. But that's an interesting thing. It'll be interesting to see what comes from that, and I think they're working on it.
We'll end up watching it. I'm sure we'll end up talking about it.
We'll talk about it. Yeah, do an episode, break it down. We ought to do an episode breakdown. Actually, we could talk about like that time period, that character a little bit. That would be interesting. I don't know. Like delve into it before the movie comes out.
Yeah, I don't know much of that aspect of Lord of the Rings, so that would be kind of interesting. You'll be teaching me a thing or two. I guess I could do my own research too, but
yeah, read about it.
It may be fun.
I'll bring all the books, because when you're trying to learn about something Tolkien, there's usually like multiple versions of it in different books that have been published. Especially when it's not like the main Lord of the Rings series, because he tinkered with lots of different stuff for a long time.
No, I'm definitely interested in that.
Yeah, so that's just like random. It's just random. Like one day you're reading, you're just doing whatever, and then it's like Lord of the Rings Rohirrim anime set 400 years before. It's like, what? Okay, all right.
Anything else new coming out that you are excited for? Anything like that? I don't know if I can think of anything that I know of that's coming out, movie, video game, or book, or anything like that.
Well, Brandon Sanderson always has books coming out.
Obviously.
That's a given.
His third Skyward is coming out, isn't it?
Yep, that's coming out.
Which I want to read.
Apparently him and the guy he's doing the podcast with, Dan Wells, they're doing some kind of story in this Dark One universe that Brandon Sanderson created.
I heard it's going to be on audio, too. It was what it sounded like from his podcast.
Is it going to be an audio
It sounds like it's
thing?
like an audio drama. Kind of like, because they were talking about the criminal true crime podcasts.
Right.
And so he wants to do something like that, audio-wise, but in that universe, which I also want to read that. That's a comic book, right? I want to read that as well.
Yeah, it's a graphic novel. And I actually want to read that too.
That'll be a little bit easier for me to get through with school because it's.
Yeah, I don't think it's multiple volumes like you're saying White Sand was.
Yeah, White Sand's 3.
I think it's just one volume.
Well, it's brand new. Didn't it just come out?
It did just
What's it called again? Dark One?
It's called Dark One, yeah. Yep, and the premise is, I think, like...
Book 1, which means there could be book 2.
Oh, okay. Book 1, yeah, that's a good point. What does it say for, like, the synopsis? Can you read it?
From #1 New York Times best-selling Hugo Award-winning author Brandon Sanderson comes Dark One. Paul Tennyson. I'm gonna say all of his names wrong because I do with all of his books.
That's your
like Jasna and Adeline and I just made 5,000 people. I made half the people quit.
Nobody knows what you're talking about.
Paul Tennyson is haunted by visions of a dark, fantastic world. A world called Mirandus. A world he must shatter. Ooh. Some worlds are made to be broken. Let's see. We're repeating the first part. From #1 New York Times best-selling Hugo Award-winning author Brandon Sanderson.
We get it!
In parentheses, the Mistborn trilogy of the Stormlight Archive series, along with Nathan Gooden, Jackson Lansing, and Colin Kelly, comes Dark One, the first book in a series of original graphic novels from Vault Comics.
First book.
Paul Tennyson is a young man haunted by visions of a dark and fantastic world. Visions he initially believes are hallucinations, but when he discovers they are prophecies from Mirandus, a world in which he's destined to become a fearsome destroyer, he'll have to embrace the fear, rise up as the Dark One, and shatter everything.
Oh my word.
Dark One examines the dual roles we often take on in life, the ability to be a savior as well as a destroyer.
Ooh.
So he's
dark.
So what it seemed like with his I guess there's a character in here that's very serial killer-ish.
Right.
And they
it's
want
like on
to,
trial or something.
Yeah, and they want to...
They're talking about.
First of all, hold up. Can we talk about the artwork in this? Look at this.
The what?
The artwork? That's some pretty good artwork.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
Like, that was my one thing. White Sand was... I liked the story and the artwork. It grew on me a little bit when I first kind of looked at White Sand. I had a hard time getting with the artwork. It was very scratchy. I think it was meant to be.
Yeah.
But this one looks very clean, looks very good. Like here, I'll pull up White Sand actually because it's right here.
You're listening at home. Type White Sand into your browser.
I guess that's the image you got, but I mean, it's even
I've seen that. Yeah, I've seen that picture, and I just thought, I'm with you there. It's a little.
It looks interesting, and I want to read it, but apparently it's on Kindle Unlimited.
But but Dark One, just the premise, it's kind of like. Really makes you want to like follow that because it's like the guy is like he's a normal guy I think at first, and then he's basically like receiving visions prophesying him becoming like a dark lord of this world, so this fantasy world. So it's like, I mean, what do you do with that, as a person, if that happens, do you embrace that? I mean, I would hope you don't, but I think in true Brandon Sanderson fashion, he'll spin that story in a way that you see how sometimes you become the thing you were trying to avoid becoming.
I'm very interested in the, here you go.
That's a little better than the cover.
Yeah, it's not as bad as I remember it being. For some reason I remember it being, Sand. But it's still like, it just seems very, it's interesting artwork. Yeah. It's good and better than I can do.
I just want to read everything.
But mind you, if anyone has Kindle Unlimited,
go read it. White Sand?
Apparently, White Sand is on Kindle Unlimited for free. All 3 of them. So that's what I'm going to be doing. Okay. That's going to be my fantasy of this next week.
All right. Can't wait to hear about it.
But yeah, I'm interested with this whole the like true crime-esque thing they're doing because I like.
Oh yeah, it's going to be they were saying it was going to be almost like I don't know if to say mock, but like they're going to pattern it after like the true crime
series,
kind of
podcasts, but in this world.
But it's going to be set in this world, the Dark One world. So that will be that should be interesting.
I'm interested for sure, especially because I'm actually a pretty relatively big fan of not necessarily true crime, but just like that, like serial killers and
Right,
stuff
you're a
like
big
that.
fan of
I like Criminal Minds, like that Criminal Minds stuff.
All right, you're a fan of serial killers.
Yeah, almost emulating them. Well, no.
Uh-oh. Are you the dark one?
Yeah, why do you think
I'm the dark one?
Why do you think I'm a medic, man?
Are you going to shatter our world? Is our world made to shatter?
Absolutely.
Please don't shatter our world. Okay. Shatter our world. It's already been shattered. Anyway. Well,
actually, you know what we need to talk about real quick? I'm sorry. We're gonna go into Star Wars here in a second because Star Wars is amazing. But I'm on my Kindle right now on my iPad, and I just remembered seeing this.
What?
We need to talk about Galaxy's Edge real quick.
Okay.
Have you read it yet?
I've not read any of Galaxy's Edge.
If you have the opportunity to read it, if you have the opportunity to read it, it's basically written by two. Like I think at least one of them is a veteran.
Right. It's
it's basically like take like two army guys or two military guys who just love Star Wars, and we're like, I just want to make it. I want to make everything but Star Wars. Like I want to make a special forces Star Wars.
So I can't write Star Wars.
Very, 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 very. I mean, heavily, unapologetically influenced by Star Wars, but super military oriented as well and special forces oriented. It is super good for anyone who likes sci-fi. It's super easy. Action packed sci-fi. They're short books.
They're short, yeah.
But I'm sorry, that was super off topic. Not super off topic. That was a little bit off topic. But I just saw it in my Kindle. I had to bring it up because I'm still. I took a break from like a year ago to read Brandon Sanderson again.
Right.
But they're like the seventh book, and man, it just gets better and better and better each time. And they have like a bunch of them. Even what's her name?
Karen Traviss.
Karen Traviss has wrote
one in the series. Yep, which she wrote.
I think she's having her own series in it.
Okay.
Her own little shoot-off series in it.
Yeah, she wrote the Republic Commando series, which is great, and so she really fit. And it's very military.
It's very Republic Commando-esque.
What do you call it? Like a military thriller or something like that. It's the Republic Commando.
It's basically
which is Star Wars. Anyway, so she really fits in that world. So that stuff for sure.
It's good. I mean, anyone who kind of enjoys that stuff, or if you like Republic Commando, check it out. Check them out. They're very, very good books. Very just entertaining to read. Action packed. I mean, it's good stuff. It's very good stuff.
Yeah. Well, should we talk a little bit about Star Wars?
I would love to. We're probably not going to get
just a little.
Yeah, probably just a little for this. I don't know. We've already been going for quite a while.
We have, yeah. We are at an hour about.
Oh my, yeah. Definitely talk a little bit about it though. We'll just have to go more later on, but
yeah. But let's just talk about just the main. I don't know, our thoughts on the main 6 movies.
Yeah, we won't talk about the last 3, the sequel.
Yeah, we'll see. We need to, if Dave Filoni makes them an alternate universe, then maybe we'll find more a little more love for him. But
not the biggest fan of the sequels, except for Kylo Ren. I think I mentioned that last episode.
Right? There's like obviously there's good stuff in them. They're just where it takes the original 3 characters in the canon.
Yeah, that's what really bothered me a little bit.
Yeah, and I mean, whatever, they are going to do what they're going to do, but
you know what? I mean, that being said, a lot of people don't like the prequels, and
a lot of people didn't like the prequels. I mean,
I love the prequels.
So that's a good place to start, really, because when I was 9, the first movie Star Wars movie I saw in theaters was Episode 1, and I loved it so much because I was 9 years old. You've got amazing lightsaber fights, choreography, and everything.
You were 9 when Episode 1 came out?
Yeah, 1999. I was 9.
Dang, I was 3.
Oh man, so much to learn about the world. No,
that was obviously Episode 1 was also the first one I ever saw.
And you were 3?
When I was 3, actually, yes.
You were at it? Do you remember watching it?
Me and my dad went and saw. I had to have.
Oh, you saw it a bunch of times.
We saw it. My brother stopped going. My brother stopped going after 11 times. We lived in Guam at the time. My dad was in the military, so we were living in Guam for a bit.
I bet were the movies really cheap there?
They were $1 for the movie. So we saw it. I mean, me and my dad just kept going. Like I said, my brother eventually stopped after 11. I think me and my dad kept going, until like 14, 15 times.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, like, a lot of people do not like number 1. I love Episode 1. Specifically for the memories.
It's, if I don't know, I used to say guilty pleasure. I think the prequels, it's less it's less it was kind of a fashionable thing to like not like the prequels or like make fun of them for a long time, and that's not so much the case anymore. So I don't know if I'd say guilty pleasure, but for a while I would have said guilty pleasure. I like episode 1 a lot, but I just love Qui-Gon Jinn's my favorite Jedi.
It's also just Liam Neeson. I mean,
what's that?
It's just Liam Neeson.
Liam Neeson, yeah, like Liam Neeson. Like if he's a character in a movie,
it's
gonna be good.
Gonna like him. Yeah, he's gonna be the best.
It's like the Taken version of a Jedi.
And Ewan McGregor, back when Ewan McGregor was a little baby.
Yeah, Ewan McGregor has a rat tail in it, so I mean, how can you not like that?
Exactly.
But no, I mean, there's so much to like in episode 1. I mean, Jar Jar Binks can be a little grating, but
you mean Darth Jar Jar, the true Sith of the entire saga,
right?
That George Lucas was scared into not.
Well, there's so many like stuff about Jar Jar. Like,
if you haven't,
the trajectory of the Star Wars series, is decided by Jar Jar Binks.
Please go watch. If you haven't yet, please go watch the theories on it. It is.
If Jar Jar Binks is not in the movies, then like it's a whole different galaxy.
It is an astounding video. The theory of Darth Jar Jar. It is astounding. Please go watch
Darth
it.
Jar Jar. Like he could be like a third, like faction of some kind, Sith Force user. I don't know.
He literally is like the driving factor of those movies. I mean, he's
the driving factor.
He literally is what initiates the emergency powers to Palpatine, right?
Oh yeah, he's the one because Padme's out of commission
in episode 2, right?
Yeah, in episode 2, Padme's out of commission because she's like
off
gallivanting with Anakin.
Oh, being protected,
falling in love with Anakin's very clunky advances,
doing the one thing that they were supposed to not do.
Right,
very clumsy advances.
Just don't. Whatever you do, don't. You just stay where you are. Just stay put. No, let's go. Let's go save Obi-Wan.
We have one rule as Jedi, and that's not to form attachments. What? You said form attachments?
You said I should form attachments?
You said I should get married to this girl?
I hate sand.
I quote that way more than I should, considering that we live on the beach.
Every time I get sand.
Every time I get something near sand.
Yeah.
And it's quoted, and it's accurate.
Good.
I am like
Anakin.
Anakin.
It's a good justification.
Do not like sand. But, I don't know. I understand.
Just got good quick.
Well, the thing is I understand
this conversation.
I understand why people, as someone who likes the prequels, I understand why people might not like the prequels. Especially people who grew up watching the originals.
Well, I mean, even when I watch episode 2, go ahead.
I can just to an extent, some of it is a little clunky in the way he told the story. Right. Anakin's whole love thing with Padme is very clunky. It feels cheesy. It's very cheesy. Yeah. Very just like I'm so confused.
Right.
Even to an extent, unless you think a little bit more into it, his fall to the dark side. Because a lot of people think, he fell to the dark side because he loved Padme and she was going to die, so blah, blah, blah. There's a lot more into it. There was a lot more to it than that, and that takes understanding a little bit more of the story of Star Wars. So, like, I understand people who don't particularly like the prequels.
To me, his fall to the dark side being hard to understand is more about the Council and Obi-Wan and how they handled him, because to the audience, and I know that it's a little more obvious because they're trying to make it obvious to the audience, but it seems like it would be obvious to Obi-Wan and the Council, especially Obi-Wan, but the Council, that Anakin's not really in a good place, like with his attitude about things a lot of times. It's like if you're so like constantly afraid of Jedi turning to the dark side, you'd think that there would be like more recognition, some kind of like diagnosis, like besides just attachments, but like that they would be like, he's showing these signs of falling to the dark side.
But that is also,
like you think you'd check all the boxes.
But that's also part of the point too, is and Yoda himself basically attests to this in episode 2, where he literally, Obi-Wan is talking about how he's scared of Obi-Wan talks about being kind of scared of Anakin's arrogance. That's right. Talked about, and Yoda says sometimes, even more. Yoda talks about the arrogance of the Jedi, and he says sometimes even the more experienced, more older Jedi themselves fall into it. That's that whole line right there basically just tells you everything about the prequels. The Jedi have become over arrogant.
Right.
They're over arrogant, and they believe too much in the light side of the Force, and that nothing can stop them.
Right.
That's how Sidious wins.
Yeah.
Sidious played against their own arrogance.
Yeah.
He knew exactly how to get them, where to go. And that's how he used Anakin to fall to the dark side. He used the arrogance of the Jedi and their own hypocrisy with what they believe to lead Anakin to the dark side.
Yeah.
It isn't just about Padme's love. Now that is a driving factor, but it does, so like, I get what you're saying, but at the same time, it's just like, they didn't see it because they were arrogant, including Obi-Wan. Even Obi-Wan and I love Obi-Wan, but even Obi-Wan to an extent was, he relatively arrogant in a lot of things.
Yeah. My very young Padawan. Like, that stuff, that grate on me so much. It's like, how do you not see that that's going to, like, really grate on Anakin, that you're, like, putting him down? Not
only that, too, but, I mean, like, you got to think about it. Obi-Wan did exactly what you're not supposed to do as Jedi. He formed an attachment to Anakin.
Yeah.
And that did blind him to what was happening to Anakin. Well,
that's a good point, yeah.
That's and I think that's a driving...
Not only blinded him to that, but like even coming all the way back to Revenge of the Sith, I mean, he couldn't see it through with his own hand imagine, I think about that every time he's standing over Anakin and he walks away. I always think about, he's walking away thinking he's handled his part. And little does he know, he has not come anywhere. The trajectory of things is going to go pretty much the same way.
Far beyond. Far beyond,
what he could have imagined.
Which,
because
eventually
he just walked away.
Which eventually leads, Luke into you kind of realize Luke in his own right, and this kind of branches a little bit into the EU, the expanded universe, but like Luke in his own right realizes that the way the Jedi used to be are not how they should be. Mm-hmm. There is not just, I think Luke kind of understands there's the main following the light side of the Force doesn't mean not having attachments, having all these rules that the Jedi placed on it, but instead just following the light, following the light side of the Force. Yeah. And using these, just by having attachment doesn't mean that you, like, Anakin's not wrong when he says, like, he says to Padme, we're almost encouraged to love. He's not wrong, because you have to love something to want to protect it to an extent, know? The Jedi Council and the way the Jedi were the Jedi Order had gone all the way from the Old Republic was so very. They caused their own problems. They are the reason a lot of their problems occur, and a lot of problems, and it even happens where people in the universe in the galaxy don't actually like the Jedi to an extent because of how they are.
You're right,
and their philosophical and theological beliefs. Which is why there's some people who agree with the Sith.
Yeah. Which, the Sith way of thinking is seductive because it seems to say you can have these things that you're denied or forbidden, and you can actually just care about yourself and what you want. But in the end, if you actually do what Anakin did and you actually say, I'm going to get those things by walking the path of a Sith, you become even more of a slave than, Anakin became even more of a slave than he was with the Jedi, because Palpatine was his master. And if he didn't do what Palpatine wanted, and if he didn't serve him, then he'd be, I think there's a lot more in like expanded stuff. There's comics and things like that to delve more into the relationship between Sidious, the abusive relationship between Sidious and Vader, and how Vader was really pushed down by Palpatine. And you said in our opening that there's the one that embodies the power and one that craves it, right? Yeah,
the master who embodies the power and the apprentice who craves that power.
Right. So
that is the ruling kind of factor of the rule of two, and that's supposed to help them continuously get stronger to eventually reach their goal of, which is, a lot of this goal is to destroy the Jedi, because they believe the Jedi are antithetical to what they believe.
Right.
But that's that. If you think about it, going back kind of a little bit back to what you said too, as far as like the dark side also leading into slavery. You think about it, the Sith Code talks about freeing yourself, breaking your chains, using the Force to set yourself free. But if you think about it, almost every single time they are brought back to another form of slavery, and that's just slavery to power. They crave more and more power. It becomes a slavery of onto itself. A less physical slavery, a more mental one. But it is still a slavery nonetheless. They crave power.
It's an unachievable kind of thing. It's like you have power. Can you have more? You're always a slave to pursuing that.
And this even goes to like what I was just watching. I was watching the video on Nihilus and how Nihilus was this being who literally ate planets, but he did it to. He was what's it called? A tear in the force or something like that. I can't remember what it was.
He could never be, but his hunger could never be fulfilled. Well,
it sustained him. Him devouring people and everything like that. It wasn't just something that he could do. It's something that literally sustained his life. He was like incorporeal in a sense, which is why all you ever see is like a robe in that mask.
Space ring wraith.
Basically. But it talks about how he just continuously kept devouring the essences of people, these souls of people, to the point where he's eventually devouring entire planets. But that's the only thing that could sustain him was these planets. Well, that's eventually what led to his downfall because he was the most powerful being because of that, how much force he had brought into himself from devouring things. But because of that, it made himself, because he was now a slave to that power. He eventually, in order to continue to live, he needed to continue to devour planets. He couldn't just go to people, which eventually led to his downfall by a Jedi who actually had lost her ability to use the Force. And I think gained it back in camera. It was a small clip, but, where she ended up defeating him because he ended up being able to use all that power and then became weak because of it, you know? So in itself, even the craving that power and searching after that power and gaining that power still made you a slave to the Force, Yeah. And so it's an interesting concept to think about as far as the Sith go, which is why there should be a healthy balance, which is why I think the Grey Jedi and the Expanded Universe stuff, that is an interesting concept of like, they kind of embrace both sides. I think Luke to an extent gets to that point in the Expanded Universe, maybe a little less so. I'm trying to remember, but
I think that it was. I mean, is it more the Grey Jedi view is less focusing on, like I'm using the Force in a light side way or a dark side way, and more that what's the goal I'm pursuing? Right?
I think too. Like I really think part of the code is there is no light nor dark. There is the Force.
Right,
they literally they believe in balance,
right?
And I think that's the true essence of the Force is balance. You need to have a balance. There can't be too much light or too much dark.
Right. Because then there's seeking equilibrium.
Yes.
At least is something I think Lucas was kind of alluding to. That whole idea, when Yoda says a prophecy that misread could have been, he is kind of Lucas alluding to the fact that, Anakin's going to bring balance to the Force. It's just not the balance you're thinking of. It doesn't just balance in the Force doesn't mean defeating the Sith. Balance means balance. It's the less. It is a less. There's a good. Good versus evil is a part of the story of Star Wars, but the way the Force works is not so much about good, the light being the dark. It's more about them being equal. That there's going to be it's going to balance itself out. But yeah. I like the prequels. I like the stories, the story of the prequels, and like you said, there are some aspects of the way it's told and portrayed that can be a little clunky, can be cheesy, just individual scenes where you're like, like whenever, like I never understand in Episode 2 when Anakin's fighting Dooku and he gets his arm chopped off. Like I know, like story wise, it's fine that his arm gets chopped off. But just like the way the scene was executed, where he's just like, there's like just a slightly too long of a pause.
Yes.
Where it's like, he stops, and then the lightsaber of Darth Dooku swings around and cuts his arm off.
I'm sorry, did you just say Darth Dooku?
Darth Tyrannus.
Thank
Sorry.
You. Count Dooku.
Count Dooku. I merged the names.
Oh my goodness. Calling yourself a Star Wars fan?
I guess they never said Darth Dooku, did they?
Count Dooku or Darth Tyrannus.
But there's like so much great stuff in the story, and it forks Anakin getting his arm chopped off. It works.
And I think that was more of a choreography issue than anything.
Right.
And
but anyway, it doesn't need to be hated on so as much as it is.
Well, even though loving the prequels as a kid too, and growing up loving them and loving them now, what really made me end up loving the prequels was reading the Darth Plagueis book.
Okay.
Because that it does a lot with Darth Plagueis, but it deals a lot with Darth Sidious too.
Right. His origin. right?
His origin to an extent, and it explains their whole process of setting up this plan to take over the Republic.
You ever hear the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise?
Exactly.
Sorry. That's my best attempt. Anyway.
I loved it. It was great. But hearing the whole plan and how they all thought about everything, I mean, the meticulousness of this plan, too, to destroy the Jedi and how they were going to do it was the one thing that most Sith never thought of doing it. They always thought of doing it through power, through conquest, through whatever. Sidious and Plagueis looked at it in a different way. They looked at it through the realm of politics.
Yeah.
They're like, what's the best way to destroy the Jedi? Turn public opinion against them.
Yeah.
That's what they did. Palpatine became the strongest man in the Republic and then proceeded to label the Jedi of traitors.
I mean, the Jedi had become basically a very political faction at that point.
And that's what Sidious played that against
So they were
them.
susceptible to, politics.
And that was part of his plan. And that just reading that book, if anyone has ever a chance, it's not super long. And it's a little thick and dense at some points, but it's really good. But man, I would just recommend the audiobook just because all Star Wars audiobooks are really good. But man, give it a listen because it'll make you appreciate episode 1, episode 2, and episode 3, all the more because even episode 1, there's a reason that's set up. There's a reason that's
it takes place, like, we don't have to get too in depth, but doesn't it take place like pre-episode 1 and some during episode 1?
It technically ends,
because technically
I think it ends at the end of episode 1.
Okay.
I think that's when Darth Plagueis is killed.
Is it through the eyes? Is it through the eyes of Palpatine?
Both Plagueis and Palpatine.
Okay, so they have like
it starts with Plagueis, and then it starts branching off of the two. And then near the end, it gets to mainly just
be Palpatine. Interesting. Yeah.
But I think technically Darth Plagueis is alive, even through most of episode 1.
Yeah, which is that when I heard that, from like watch Star Wars theory videos on YouTube, and when I heard that, I was like, oh, wow, that's really interesting. That's really different. Like, like, Palpatine was basically a Padawan, not a Padawan, but like an apprentice. To a Sith Lord during episode 1, is really interesting.
To an extent. I think at that point they'd been considered. Because I think also at that point because the thing about Darth Plagueis was his plan was to eradicate the rule of 2.
Oh, really?
His plan was, because that's why he was, the whole tragedy of Darth Plagueis was where he was seeking to extend life. That was a true story. He was seeking to extend his own life, not through...
Did he want to just be the last Sith, basically?
Basically, he wanted to be where there's no longer a need to pass on the power... Right. In the way the Rule of 2 did, but instead for him, he originally wasn't even going to take Palpatine as an apprentice. I think instead things occurred, things with him and his family, and he ended up taking him under his wing.
Huh.
But he originally wasn't. I don't think he was originally supposed to do that. I think he was originally going to be the last one. He wanted to extend his life, not in the way of like essence transfers like other Sith have done, but in the sense of legitimately stay in his own body and extend his own life and be the ultimate ruler of the galaxy.
Right.
He was ending the Rule of 2, and technically the Rule of 2 ended with him. I think even Sidious was like, the Rule of 2's done. Like, even though he has Vader, I don't think he ever saw Vader as that apprentice like that. He saw him as a tool. I think Sidious's whole plan was to be that lone Sith.
To take up what Plagueis' plan was and embody that. That's interesting.
So, yeah, so it's very even at the end, like when Plagueis is killed by Darth Sidious, it was never like that caught Plagueis totally by surprise because they had always planned on doing it together, ruling together until Palpatine ended up being like, "Screw you," and lightning shocked the snot out of it.
Ironic.
Exactly. So just reading that helped me, but like just made me appreciate the prequels even more, of just like the whole process that went through Palpatine's plan, and even stuff in episode 1 is all meticulously thought through to eventually bring forth the Clone Wars.
I mean, you can even go into, Palpatine literally, it was cut out of the final like script or whatever of Revenge of the Sith, but in the original script of Revenge of the Sith, it was going to be revealed that Palpatine literally influenced the midichlorians to create Anakin.
Mm-hmm, I think so. Like pretty sure that's somewhere in there.
Almost like another "I am your father" kind of crazy reveal that Palpatine wasn't biologically his father, but
I think it had to do with both Plagueis and Palpatine too.
Right. It was both. They were trying to do something, and what they created turned out to be the chosen one.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Don't fact check us. Don't fact check us on that.
Okay, yeah, don't look that up.
No, you can look it up.
I mean, I don't know how that goes with the Darth Plagueis book. I just know that I remember reading that in the that was like cut out of the original script of Revenge of the Sith, which probably came out before that.
I think it's like alluded to in the Plagueis book. I don't remember. It's been a bit since I've read it.
So I mean, like Darth Sidious. I mean, he was on another level. I mean, it helps, when you're the only one. The only thing you have to worry about, is your designs, and you don't have to worry about other people really as much. I mean, I guess it's a lot to worry about, but I just think for the Jedi, they had a lot of Padawans and a lot of things they had to manage, and they have this whole like the council and all the different Jedi within it, and what their role is in the galaxy and what they're trying to do and accomplish. It just seems like you could be it was easier for Sidious to be a lot more focused in his plan and what he needed to do in those little baby steps, and the patience.
Oh, I mean, his patience is magnificently sound.
It's crazy, but it all comes to the head in Revenge of the Sith, which is one of the reasons that movie is. I feel like it's a movie. It's very so watchable, and yet it's so horrifying to watch it all unfold. Well,
it's one of my. I'll say right now, it's one of my favorite. I don't want to say one of my favorite. It is one of my favorites, but it's hard to say that because all of them are my favorite.
Oh,
but like Episode 3 is definitely one up there, and it's such a good movie, and I like it so much because it's one of those times in movies where the bad guys win.
Yeah,
that is unequivocally
there's a crazy cost.
Unequivocally, the bad guys won Episode 3.
Yeah,
I mean, literally, it ends with the Jedi being wiped from the face of the galaxy, minus a few here and there.
Right.
Palpatine won. His plan came to fruition.
Yeah.
Which is astounding, Obviously, it comes back to full circle in Episode 6.
Before there was Thanos.
Exactly, and Palpatine's way cooler.
He didn't need to snap his fingers. He orchestrated it through
politics, just like real
life. Through
life.
exciting politics.
But yeah, Episode 3 is just such a good movie. And nothing beats Anakin and Obi-Wan's duel on Mustafar. It is
the pain.
That scene, you are my brother, Anakin.
Yeah. I mean, it just drives me crazy, that scene, because it's just like, stop fighting.
You're making me cry.
Realize, like I'm always like, I'm watching that movie and I'm always like, somebody, just like Anakin, just tell somebody, just tell Obi-Wan, and Obi-Wan will be like, okay, let's figure this out. Let's figure this out. Like, you don't have to go down the worst possible path. I always, that's the most heartbreaking thing, that the scene when Anakin has just killed all the separatist leaders on Mustafar, and he's looking out over the lava and everything, and there's a tear running down his face. And I think I've heard people talk about that. It's like he is weeping for the boy who wished to be a Jedi. He's weeping for who he wanted to be, that was dead. That died, and he was going down a path he never thought he would have walked, because he thought there was no other way. And how heartbreaking is it that he was at a place where he thought he could turn nowhere else but down this horribly, horribly dark path because of, the lack of nuance within the Jedi Order,
To where he loses everything.
Yeah. And the galaxy, loses everything. The Jedi lose everything,
But then, to bring it back to a more happy note, you get to Episode 6, where you are shown that even through the deepest of darkness, there's always light still left inside.
That's right.
That is the epitome of Star Wars. Exactly. There's darkness in people, but there's always light still up. That is Luke's ultimate goal in those movies, is to show that Darth Vader, there's still light in his father.
It's all about, it's all about where are you in the story. You think depending on where you're at in the story, you look at it and you think, this is the saddest thing. This is horrible. It couldn't get any better. Let's just close the book. And let's just, to get real. Whatever you're going through in your life, you could feel like, this is just so sad. This is just so hard. This is so tragic.
This is your Order 66.
This is your Revenge of the Sith, or whatever. And what you don't realize is you're always at a certain part of the story.
There's another 3 movies, man.
Yeah.
There's another 3 movies.
But yeah, you got, that is the beauty of the way Lucas orchestrated everything, that, you take the character down the darkest road and then you bring them back. I mean,
that's
amazing.
It's always redemption.
I mean, he was like, it's too late for me, son. And, that is a beautiful thing, too, to use the relationship of father and son to bring, like, what else could bring you back from that is the fruit of, the piece of the person you lost, the piece of the person that the reason you went down that path in the first place. You still have a piece of that person, of your wife, through your children. And that person believes you can be something different. You can be something better. And in that one split second moment, in episode 6, he chooses to be that person, and it brings him back. It's a beautiful thing.
It really is. So, well, I think that might be a good spot to end.
Yeah. Watch Star Wars.
I absolutely watch Star Wars. 100% watch Star Wars. There will be more Star Wars conversations.
Yeah, there's a lot more we could talk about.
There is a lot of Star Wars to talk about.
But thank you for listening again. Thank you for coming back. If you've listened to the other episodes, if not, if you just found us, thank you for joining us for this one.
Hit that subscribe button if you like it. Follow us on Instagram. I think it's bridge_of_2. I think it's TWO.
Yeah, TWO. I did make a YouTube channel too.
There will be posts on it at one point. I am lazy and have not posted anything yet.
I'm sure before we put everything that we have so far up, there will definitely be. We'll have some stuff up there, and we just enjoy having these conversations. So come back next time. We'll talk about some more fantasy sci-fi stuff and have a good old time.
Absolutely.
This was and is the Bridge of Two podcast. A far, far away bridge. He tinkered with lots of different stuff for a long time. Jeremiah's cat is very interested in the table right now.
She's letting her inner wind-sprint come out.
Is that it?
Yeah.
You're gonna
watch her. She might step on your keyboard. She will 100% step on your keyboard.
Sniffing the microphone, sniffing my
sticking
laptop.
To things.
Sniffing your beard.
Still, come on. What are you doing?
She wants some Funky Buddha. Yeah. So that, so...
Let's see if we got that on the mic.